Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
I'm Debbie Travis.
And I'm Tommy Smythe.
And this is Trust Me, I'm a Decorator.
Hi from Toronto, Debbie. How's Italy?
Italy, Tuscany is hot and I have to say crazy. So I'm sitting in my barn right next to a full bar because I'm at the end of my tether. It is summer holidays here and it brings you to your knees. It brings you to your knees, but I'll explain in a minute. So tell me, how's your summer? Because you just got off a plane from Chicago.
So I was near Chicago, actually in and out of Chicago by air, but I was actually in a little town called Saugatuck, which is
disgusting. Just the kind of place you would go.
So you know how Lake Michigan looks like a big willy?
I don't, but yeah.
And so way down at the tip of the willy is Chicago on the west side. And if you go directly opposite on the east side of that lake is Saugatuck. And it's a resort town that's quite old. It's kind of fed by all the different cities that are in close proximity: Chicago, Indianapolis, Grand Rapids, and then you have Detroit very close by. So in the great days of motoring in the summer months, Saugatuck became quite popular because it has these incredibly beautiful wide beaches, gorgeous natural sand beaches right on one of the Great Lakes. Yeah, so it's quite beautiful. It's quite historic.
Are there old houses and stuff where people used to go in the old days? Like
beautiful, big houses that remind you of the film Big Chill. Many of them have been turned into very charming little inns. And then, of course, it also has this reputation as being basically like the province town of the Midwest.
Okay.
So it's also a gay destination. So I went with the Golden Gays, my group of friends who traveled together, the old gays. And there's this wonderful place on the outskirts of Saugatuck called the Dunes, which has drag shows and a Freddie Mercury impersonator and drinks until 3 a.m. and dancing. And it was really actually quite an enjoyable, really fun time. And it's a mixed crowd. Of course, all the straight people come in from town as well because it's the most fun.
And just to watch, yeah.
So it's a wonderful mixture of people just enjoying their summer holidays. And it's, late nights twirling on the dance floor, followed by, leisurely mornings with beautiful brunches in town and everybody's hangover and it's Bloody Marys and all of that. So it was a really, really lovely weekend, actually.
Wow, fantastic. It was just a long weekend.
It was just a long weekend. We went down on the Friday and came home late last night, which was Monday. And it's very easy from Toronto, actually. You fly in and out from the island airport right into Chicago Midway.
Oh, gosh. I didn't know
And then
that.
it's like a 2-hour drive from there. So it's a long journey in total, but it's a nice journey because you sort of do a little bit of air travel, a little bit of driving.
Yeah.
And the driving is reminiscent of those, great sort of analog olden days of motor traveling, in the summer months with family or friends to get from one destination to another and enjoy things like beautiful sand beaches and lovely.
Did you
historic...
enjoy those drives, though? I mean, I
do.
Memories.
I actually do. Yeah. I mean, it depends on how long the drive is. I can't really go past about 3 hours. After that, I become a little bit squirrely.
Yeah. Well, I just remember it, cars filled with children and screaming parents and, summer holidays have come. Hell of the drive. Well, here we have the national Italian holiday, which is called Ferragusto. And it is the favorite word of every Italian because every Italian heads for the beach. Basically, it starts next week. It starts on the 15th. And, but then they need a week before to kind of.
Yeah. Well, the whole country shuts down.
The design world knows because there's no tile, no ceramics, no flooring.
Oh, if you order something in August, nobody gets to it until September.
Try December. It's from the 15th of August until the end of August, but that's actually not true because they have to have a week to prep. Clear their desk.
And then a week to get back to normal.
And then a week to get back to minimum,
So it's like 5 weeks.
Yeah. And it's really is a cultural thing here. I wrote about it in the new book about kind of what goes on there. Actually, You know what? I've got a bit.
Oh, are we going to get a little story time?
I'll give you a little bit of storytelling because I really love this subject. I basically start this chapter saying, go home. Do not try and go to Italy or even France at this time of year, unless you want to go in the middle of nowhere, villages where they've all left.
Well, I've been in Paris in August, and it is A, unbearably hot and humid, and B, completely empty of people. Like there's nobody there.
Yeah, because everybody goes to the beach. Everybody.
It's like a post-apocalyptic film where everyone's, completely gone. It's amazing. It's actually lovely.
Oh, it can be very nice if you go, somewhere where nobody is. But if you think you're going to have a beach holiday and think you're going to be on some sweeping Cape Cod beach, miles of sand where you can hide away from people, it is not, because the culture here is very, very different. So I'll just read for a second.
I should have brought a cup of tea down for my story time.
All Italian beaches are public beaches, but some are more public than others. The protected national parks are stunning and usually empty, featuring endless stretches of sand with no amenities, no restaurants, burger bars, or loos. But why would any fun-loving Italian want to be alone on a picturesque sandy beach when they can be crammed like a tin sardine head to toe with their neighbors, co-workers, friends, and family? As far as I can tell, Italians prefer to travel in packs. We go away, and if you went on a gorgeous Caribbean beach somewhere or to Thailand and you bump into your local shopkeeper or or a colleague from work, you'd be like, oh no.
And the beaches are chock-a-block, jammed with people.
Yeah. So this is what I wrote. So most of the public beaches are managed by beach clubs, hundreds of them, if not thousands. Feel free to walk along the water's edge, but never attempt to park yourself on one of the tightly packed sun lounges that lie under rows of multicolored parasols. They may be empty, but beware. They have been reserved by families for generations. If you aren't a member of a beach club, you will be offered costly lounges to rent, usually beside the toilets and overflowing garbage bins. A trip to the Maldives can be less expensive if you've ever visited the popular Cinque Terre or the Ligurian Riviera, 5 brightly colored fishing villages precariously nestled between cliffs and Mediterranean Sea. You'll know there is the odd slice of sand around, but there's no real beaches. Here, the imperative is the same in terms of bodies per square inch. But the holiday makers have to turn into contortionists, cramming themselves into giant boulders that line the shore. They spread their towels and soak up the sun until, like lemmings, they head off en masse to ear-splittingly noisy quayside restaurants for 3-hour-long lunches. This level of madness can be found along the shores of the entire peninsula of Italy during the extreme heat of August. Mind you, good-natured Italians are not the only ones heading to the coast. The roads are bumper to bumper with camper vans, flocks of motorbikes, family sedans and convertibles with number plates from across Europe and Britain. An exodus of increasingly distraught dads, hysterical mothers and whinging kids caught in an internal traffic jam. Engines overheat, tempers erupt. Then there are rules. So when you get to these beaches, all adults in sea and on sand must wear bottoms, except on designated nudist beaches. Babies and toddlers can run around naked. Topless, no problem. Oh, except in restaurants where tops and bottoms are mandatory. Pensioners must wear the skimpiest of bathing suits. An average bloke may prefer board shorts or boxer-style swimwear, but on Italian beaches you will see many overly tanned men, wrinkled as prunes, parading in tie and grape smugglers, nut huts, budgie smugglers, scrote totes, or truffle duffels. These are a few of the evocative names for the thongs and speedos you'll see popular on European beaches. So that's, it's like,
I'm so impressed by your extensive vocabulary of descriptives of Speedos.
Oh my God. And who said they ever went out of fashion? Because they haven't here. But it's, it is just a different culture of craziness. And so you have these kind of rules. Of course, nobody sticks to them, but we have rules here because end of July, August is when our family turn up and friends. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. So 2 weeks ago, every single room was booked. So we had over 18 people here. And what I didn't tell you, Tommy, the only little hole in my heart was everybody was here. Jackie's kids, the babies, my eldest.
Both Maxes, all the babies.
But Max couldn't come. He was working.
Oh.
So I had this little hole in my heart because my youngest couldn't come. But this is what happened. I go to the garden because I've done nothing but cook for everybody, and I get a lettuce. And as I'm carrying the lettuce from the vegetable garden to the house, I feel a little prick. Not hands. Sorry, that just came out. I feel this little sting. So I get into the kitchen, and by the time I'm in the kitchen, I've got like 3 or 4 stings all over my hands. I throw this lettuce into the sink, spray it with water, and wasps all come out of it because we've had no water, no rain for like 8 weeks. So the wasps, I guess, are trying to get the moisture out of the lettuce.
Yeah,
anyway, the kitchen is full of wasps. So everybody's in the kitchen, smashing wasps, catching them, throwing them out and everything. And I run outside with an ice cube on. Luckily, they were quite baby wasps, so it wasn't so bad. So I'm outside the kitchen door, squeezing some ice cubes, and I hear huge screaming this time. Huge screaming. So I'm like, oh, what now? What? Can I take any more? I go in the kitchen. And Max and Andy are standing there.
No, they surprised you.
It surprised me. So how everybody kept this quiet, I don't know. So my youngest and his beautiful, wonderful wife were standing in the kitchen. And
That's incredible.
Hans sent a driver because I would have known if he'd gone to Rome to pick them up. And they just arrived. So they weren't screaming, all the friends in the kitchen, you know, standing there in bikinis and baby food and all this stuff going on. They were screaming because, so now we had the full shebang and party went up a notch. But, you know, you have all these friends, all these people come, everybody's cramming in. So over the years, we have come up with rules.
I mean, you have to have some house rules for sure, and delegated responsibilities.
And the cost. So here's a list of rules that I put in the book.
Because every meal in a situation like that is like catering cooking. You're basically cooking for like a wedding party every single meal. That's breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, and everybody eats something different. I mean, it's like, anyway, number 1, bring a car. If somebody says to me again, I'll call an Uber. We don't even have a taxi here, and the donkey's retired. Number 2, do not stay more than 5 days. That's out the window. They stay 2 weeks. Number 3, please fill your rental car with booze. Do not turn up here empty-handed. Just bring from the airport tequila or gin or all the costly drinks. I'll supply the wine and the booze, you know. Do not bring your dirty laundry, because some people actually say to me, the hotel, we came from the hotel in Florence and it was so expensive to do the laundry. So Jim, can you bring the suitcase? And Debbie will do it.
Debbie will not do it.
Debbie will not do it. Please leave your room tidy-ish when you leave, because what happens is people go shopping and then they leave all like their carrier bags all over the floor and coffee cups and all stuff like that.
And the tags they've cut off and everything. Yeah.
And 6, you know, if you decide to go for a walk, could you please tell somebody? Because sometimes, you know, you're in the middle of dinner and going, where's Jim and John? And you're like, oh, they went for a walk before breakfast. Oh my God, we haven't seen them for 12 hours. Where are they? You know, they've been eaten by a wolf or something.
Chingali.
Yeah. Well, actually, we do have a wolf, so we haven't seen it.
Oh.
But all the locals have seen it, so I'm a bit worried about that. But wild boar, we can, you know, they don't usually bother you. But a wolf, I don't know. Do wolves eat people? I guess they do.
They can
certainly eat a border collie.
Absolutely. You have to be very careful, for sure.
Yeah. So I think if people are on holiday and they've got a holiday house, or they've got, like a cottage on a lake or something like that, it's really good to have. You have to make a bit of sense of humor around it, but you're definitely serious.
Yeah. And over the years, I've done, you know, many interior projects for clients that are vacation homes, either on lakes or oceans, once on a river. And one thing that we do as a little bit of advice to clients, and we've often done this, and it's such a great tip, is if you have multiple bedrooms and different guesting in different bedrooms at different times, just like at a hotel, we put numbers on the outside of the door of each bedroom. And then we have embroidered onto the towels that are designated for the occupants of that bedroom the same number.
Oh, so you know who leaves skid marks.
Because I remember growing up on the Muskoka Lakes, I remember whenever my mother had company at our cottage on the lake, she was constantly consistently doing loads of laundry of towels, because people would just grab a towel and go in the lake, and then grab another towel and have a shower, and then grab another towel and go back in the lake again at nighttime. And then there might be skinny dipping after midnight, and there's another towel. And by morning, you've got 38 towels to wash. So we put numbers on them for clients' bedrooms in these vacation homes.
That's a great idea.
You know which towel is yours, and you're responsible for your own towel, and they all find their way back into the right room.
And how do you put the number on? How do you put it on? Because I'm doing that.
You just have them embroidered. Many places will just embroider the number onto the towel. And it's so convenient for people, because then things don't get too confused, and people will start to reuse their towels because they realize, oh, I've used up all my number 2 towels or all my number 3 towels. And so I need to keep, an eye on things and keep it down to a dull roar in terms of the laundry.
Well, we do it because we have pool towels for the retreats, as you know. And we do tell people one towel, if you lose your towel or for some reason it gets filthy. But we do it because we've got a water shortage. So all year round, we don't have a lot of water.
So you have to reuse your towels. You have to encourage people to reuse them. Yeah,
exactly. And I think when you kind of threaten people with that, the environment, they're a little bit, whatever. But you're true. You go down to the pool and people just leave everything. And I'm not talking about our paying guests, who are actually better behaved than family. By far, it's the family and stuff like that, and usually the closer the family, they lay everything, they're having breakfast all at different times. That's the other thing. My kids don't get up because they're up partying at night,
of course,
and so they're coming down at 1 PM when everybody else is having lunch, going, "What's for breakfast?" Well,
it's not just your kids. That's all of Europe in the summer. I mean, everybody goes to Europe, and you eat dinner at 9:00 instead of at 6:00 in the evening. And then you have all night partying and dancing under the stars. And then, of course, you go to bed and sleep in really late.
Yeah.
So there's no such thing as breakfast in Europe in the summer. It's brunch only.
Oh my God.
Or lunch.
My eldest is an amazing, amazing chef. I mean, really good.
Yes, I know that.
And when you're very good at something, you end up doing most of the cooking because he's so good at it. He takes his time. And so sometimes it's 11, 12 o'clock before.
That's a tactic,
and I just can't eat that late anymore. I used to be able to.
I think that's a tactic. I think that's so that people's appetites are so extreme by the time the food is served that they absolutely love it.
And they're drunk and they're just asleep in their gazpacho. But, you're dealing with...
It sounds so beautiful, Debbie. Just to be able to have your friends and family all gather in the same place and have room for everybody. I mean, that's the dream of the Tuscan villa. I mean, that's Villa Rainella to a T.
Yeah.
And when you have retreat guests, it's the same vibe. It's new people that you don't know very well, but they become new friends. And then you feel as though you're in someone's home at a family gathering. And it's such a lovely, lovely vibe. It's such a good thing.
It is. And everybody came in kind of relays.
Which is nice. To stagger arrivals is also a good tip, to ask people to stagger arrivals. Otherwise, you've got 18 toilets flushing at the same time when they get out the cars.
And also, there were so many delays. I have to say, every single flight of people coming here in the last 2 weeks has been delayed. And sometimes horrendously or rerouted. I don't know I can't even blame one airline because it's all of them.
It's every airline and it's every single time. It is the new normal in travel. People need to be aware that you cannot plan a meeting or a dinner reservation or anything on the other end of any flight because it will be inevitably delayed or canceled entirely.
Exactly.
Just don't. Wait until the next day.
Or you know what I do? On the night that most people were arriving and they were all coming in from different airports, I just got a load of lasagnas and then you could just keep... And it's till 1:00 in the morning. It's like they were so reheated. They were like shoe leather.
The ladies who make those lasagnas that you get are so good and they're so delicious.
Yeah.
But it's always a crowd pleaser anyway. It's never like that meal never feels like an ad hoc meal. It always just feels like a special occasion because they're so delicious.
We're down to 3 at the moment. So of course I'm hiding in the barn. But I think for me, the sign of a great summer or a great family gathering is no arguing. Nobody's had a fight. We're like, nearly there and nothing. It did get very close. So, I'm very lucky because I have 2 dishwashers.
Yes.
Right. And that's not making a joke. They are proper dishwashers on either. And how I ever survived without 2 dishwashers, I'll never know. But they are going nonstop. So I'm stacking the dishwasher for the 500th time that day. And one of his name will be not mentioned, but we're related. actually said to me, Mum, you are the worst dishwasher stacker ever.
Oh, those are fighting words.
And it's like, excuse me, would you like to stack it maybe if you're such a genius, And I think every mother around the world is thinking that, like, if you want to do it, you do it. But so it's the stacking and unstacking, putting stuff away, and you turn around and everybody's piled all their dishes on the empty counter and you haven't even.
I know.
Oh my God.
There was a meme that went around saying that in every couple, in every household, there are two types of people stacking the dishwasher. One stacks it like a feral raccoon, and the other stacks it like a Swedish architect.
Yes, absolutely. With, all the knives. I just don't have the time, and it's like also the same with chefs. I can knock up a meal, for 1,800 people, so what time is lunch? Well, we're hungry, Mom, whatever. I can just knock something up.
I've seen you do it. You just grab what's in the fridge and throw it together. Yeah.
And somebody else will say, I'll make a risotto. And I watched them cutting an onion. I could have grown that onion by the time they've chopped it into, and it's like, yes, it looks beautiful. And it's, whatever, but it just takes so long. And I was like, I'll do the tomatoes. Don't worry, I'll do it. And then they go, okay, then, I'm like, you're just too slow. So I think people like that do it on purpose, so they never do anything.
That absolutely. There's definitely a strategy of doing something poorly so that you don't get asked again, for sure.
Well, so I actually, by the end, after most of them have gone, I said, do you mind if I just have an evening off? Because I'm a bit tired of talking. So I went in the barn, and for the first time, I know everybody in the world has watched this except me. I started watching that show called Down Under, the deck thing about the boat.
Below Deck.
Below Deck. And I'm like, why am I watching this? This is my life, just cooking and cleaning and, Mum, can I have more towels? Can I have this? Can I have this? You know where they are? You can go and get them if you like, but you're constantly saying, let's keep the status quo, because I think when you're doing things like this, you're creating memories.
Of course.
What I do love more than anything in the world is listening to the kids talking about, because we had Jackie's children here as well. Children. They're not children, but
they were offspring.
Offspring. They were all talking about some of the crazy holidays we'd done together. And Jackie and I were just like very emotional. And we're thinking, they are all these holidays and rental houses that we all got and people at their cottages and all that. You're creating memories. Like you talk about your time, on the lake. And that's what parents do. You create these wonderful memories.
And you have and of course in the arc, in the lifetime arc of most families, your early childhood vacations are usually less fancy. And then as people get older and they all have their own incomes and everybody can contribute a little bit, you tend to have, slightly more fancy holidays. And it's a real gamut and you get the experience of everything.
We're going to take a quick break. Be right back.
I remember as a teenager, I was really a bugger of a teenager.
I've heard.
And I really put my parents through their paces. And I remember one year when it was going to be spring holidays, like spring break, they had said that they had announced that they were going to drive to Florida, which is basically like a 3-day drive. It's so far. And my parents sat me down in the family room and they said, so we've decided to drive to Florida and we're going to drive from Toronto to Florida all the way. And I looked at them and I said, if you people think that I am getting in a car with you for 3 days, you have got another thing coming. And my mother looked at me and she said, oh, darling, you're not coming. We've bought you a plane ticket. We don't want you in the car. I didn't know whether to be elated or whether to be very offended.
Well, you're lucky she didn't say we bought you a plane ticket to Iceland. You're going somewhere else.
Yeah, you're going to Siberia to a work camp. That's probably would have smartened me up.
We used to drive in my days, in the old days, in England. We would drive from Lancashire, like a bit north of Manchester, to Anglesey, which is an island of Wales, northern Wales.
Beautiful island.
Beautiful, where Kate and Will have. That's where they went when they first got married. I think they have a house there, but. Lovely beaches. It does rain a lot, but you could do that drive now, probably in an hour and a half, right? It took us a week to get there. Literally, and I'm not exaggerating, pulling a caravan, stopping everywhere, and the bedlam and the craziness of this. I remember
the noise. Oh.
Well, once we stopped late at night. It was dark, and my mum and dad arguing, putting up this tent where we all had to cram into. It's a tent they got off the back of a Weetabix box. So most of the time, it was blown away in the morning, British gusts of wind. Anyway,
That's like a terrible idea, a tent off the back of a Weetabix box.
They put this tent up and we all just thrown in it and told to shut up and go to sleep. And so there'd be kind of 6 of us, I guess. And halfway through the night, it must have been the middle of the night, we hear roaring. And I was the eldest, probably as bad as you. And I said, that sounds like a lion to me. And not that I'd ever heard a lion before. My mum, hit me across the head and said, oh, just be quiet. Don't be ridiculous. And then a few minutes later, there's another great big roar. And then we heard an elephant. And my father gets out with this huge torch. And the tent was literally against the fence of a safari park. Against the fence. And there were lions in the dark. All you saw were their eyes, because it was dark, red eyes in the thing. My mother was like, okay, everybody get out of the tent now. We're just going to move it a little bit.
Each of you grab a corner. We're going to pick it up and move it over here.
We were literally pressed against this fence. And it was when we woke up in the morning, we weren't that far away. And then 2 nights later, I don't know if it was the same trip, but, so we park this tent and we wake up in the morning and we're literally on the edge of a cliff. Like if somebody got out to go to the loo.
Out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Oh my God. I hate camping with every core of my being.
So do I.
And so Hans and I went glamping.
Well, that you liked.
That I liked. So we went 3 or 4 weeks ago. I've been a few times to this place and that was like beautiful safari tents and it's more like the camping of 4 seasons or something. So it was really nice. But the last time I kind of went in a tent was a disaster. And it was when we went to Peru and we did Machu Picchu.
Oh, yes. I remember you telling me about this.
So there was us and Jackie and her husband, Steve, and my eldest. And you climb up and up and up. And after the first day, you're basically out of civilization and you have Sherpas and stuff like this. So what's nice is you get there and they put all the tents up and they're very small tents and there are 2 in each tent. So we were all in a long line along this kind of ridge. And then above us was 1 shower and there was like 50, 60 people, 1 shower and 1 toilet. And it was disgusting. Everybody was kind of queuing, lining up to use this toilet. But what I didn't realize, and I think Jackie's told you this story, that it was like we'd have to really set off after breakfast. So they started the 1 shower for everybody at around 5 a.m. It was dark. So outside the tent every morning, the Sherpas left a bowl with water in it, soapy water, and nice warm water. And it was the first morning. And so I opened my tent and there's this bowl of water. So I threw the water out and then I thought, I'll be clever. So I managed to hook the torch, this big torch, over the inside of the frame. So it's hanging, so the tent is lit. And I thought, I'm not going up there with those people in that filthy, disgusting shower. I'll wash in the tent. So you're a boy, so it's a bit different. But I brought the water in and I wash, right? So they'd left this water for people, I guess, maybe to splash their faces. Well, I do the whole, in England we call a cat wash, under the arms, between the legs, the whole thing. Yeah. And then I take the dirty bowl of water and I throw it out. Next minute, Jackie's running down and she's coming into my tent. She said, what are you doing? I said, what? She said, the whole queue is watching you strip off and clean every orifice because I got the light and it was dark outside. So 50 people were just watching this entertainment of me under the arms.
So it was you nude in silhouette for all of them to see having a bath.
Yes, exactly. And then
you call that a cat wash?
In England we call it a cat wash. So it was.
I've heard it called pits and slits.
Oh, that's disgusting. But in England, your mum would give you a cat wash because
No time for a full bath. Yeah, just like a quick,
other holidays. But when Jackie and I, many, many years ago, we went to Vietnam and we walked across Vietnam to raise money for colon cancer. And we had elephants as Sherpas, elephants carrying our stuff and Sherpas. But then we had these little grey tents. And the first night, I'm always complaining, and Jackie's the nice one, as you know. And I'm like, you know what's going to happen? Those elephants are going to think we're a female tent, and they're going to try and jump on the tent and shag us and stuff. And we used to laugh in that tent because you had to keep it zipped up because of the bugs. And we were allowed one beer. Well, we were so hyper with this one beer at the end of the day because we'd walk 25 miles a day.
Of course, straight to your heads.
Oh my God, we would laugh. And our elephant, it had a chain on its ankle in the evening, but it could get towards the tent. And every morning we'd wake up and it'd be going through our big bags because they were outside the tent, looking for like Cliff Bars and
stuff.
All your underwear would be all over. And this great big elephant was like, it was amazing. But we were in that situation, we were so tired that, we slept. It's for me, camping's not a thing.
I haven't seen the inside of a tent in many, many years, but Patrick, my partner, who you know well, he loves the outdoors and he loves to go camping. And, it's funny because he met me much later in my life where that was a thing of the past for me. But I'm constantly telling him, when I was a teenager and a boy, I went on long canoe trips in Algonquin Park for like 2 weeks at a time, where, you had to bring everything that you were going to eat for the whole time and lug it through the forest and across lakes. And I was at one time in my life very outdoorsy and very sort of like compliant with, the things that come with that, which is,
I just don't see that somehow.
Well, nobody would imagine the present
Boy Scout
version of myself would ever have been like a Boy Scout, but I definitely was. And I feel very much now as though that was a time in my life, and I certainly don't regret it. It was beautiful seeing, the natural environment in that way, like in a very clean, very undisturbing way. Like we never left any trash behind. It taught me to be very respectful of the natural environment. But I must say, I do love a Ritz-Carlton or a Four Seasons. These days, it's Claridge's or bust.
Yeah. But, the most successful holidays and probably the least expensive we ever had, and we still do it today. And in fact, I've been Googling all morning, is in Europe, well, everywhere really, is renting a house between a couple of families or on your own. And also doing it off season, because we're thinking of renting in Sicily in January, beginning of January. So the weather's not bad. It's maybe, 16 to 18. What's that? 68
Lovely.
Or something.
That's like room temperature, like beautiful for walking.
And there's no tourists. Yeah, because if you go to Sicily now, like I said, the Italians are on holiday, but really from April on, Sicily, for instance, is a very, very busy location now because of White Lotus and so many films.
Huge surge in tourism because of that series.
Exactly. I think that particular hotel is booked out for 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
There's a company which I think is amazing. It's just one of the best rental companies. They don't do every country. They do Sicily, Greece, and Crete, I think, and Puglia. And it's called The Thinking Traveller. And they have the most incredible, I shouldn't tell everybody because now I'm not going to get the house I want. But literally, they're a third of the price in January as they are. So if you're not bothered about a beach holiday, just maybe walking on the beach and stuff, and you want to go and see like where The Godfather was shot, which is, fabulous, or go to Noto, which is beautiful, or Syracuse, or Taormina, where they shot White Lotus.
I've heard that Syracuse is very beautiful.
Yeah. And I spoke to this agent this morning from this rental agency. She said, we're always amazed that people want to go July, August, September. I know kids are on holiday then, but so are the winter holidays. And, people think of the Caribbean and stuff. But if you want to go at a fraction of the cost and see something amazing, I think it's worth looking into off season if you can.
Well, don't be surprised if when you get there this coming January, you run into me and several other of our listeners.
Oh, I'm going to go on the website now, and the house I want, which looks amazing, and it's a fortune if you go in August. So it's like, it's gone. because Tommy took it. But we may all go there and just rent, a 5-bedroom house on the beach. And I mean, there'll be a lot of restaurants will be closed. That's the only thing.
Sure. But you can cook if you've got a house rental. You can cook for yourselves. The grocery stores will be open.
Of course, people live there. And also there's a lot of festivals that time of year because there's lots of saints' days and things like that, especially the Sicilians. They love their festivals and all in costume and stuff. And I think you'd be hanging out with locals. So yes, a lot of places will close, beachside restaurants and things like that. But if you want to go and see, the sights, I think it's an amazing time to go. That's kind of, it'll probably snow when I get there, but it'll be just Etna will erupt again. Etna's erupting now. So all the flights out of Sicily are cancelled today because there's just black ash over everything. But yeah, so that's my tip of the day,
Speaking of Etna, I've just been watching this fabulous series called Those About to Die with Anthony Hopkins and one of the fellows from Game of Thrones.
Oh, it's not the Colosseum thing.
It's about the Colosseum.
So somebody said it was absolutely appalling.
Oh, I loved it. Really? Who said it was appalling?
Jackie.
Oh, well, I mean,
she watched anything, but you know what she said? She said the AI of it is incredible. Like
it's unbelievable. The Circus Maximus looks like a real place.
Yeah, but she said the script is very weak.
Well, the script of most things is very weak. I mean, Jackie has very high standards. She's very smart. But I'm a little less smart. And so I enjoyed it just because of the entertainment value. Yeah. And of course, it's very sexy and very, exciting and terrible violence. And it's quite entertaining. But what I found the most fascinating about it was really the architecture and the interiors and the way that they depict ancient Rome in all of its magnificence and glory. And when you go to the sites and you see the historic monuments in Rome, there's lots of renderings and drawings that they do so that you can get a hint of what it might have been like when it was first built. But this is in 3D and it's just like you're there. And it's a rare thing. In films, usually you see some kind of cobbled together set and they shoot it from certain, angles so that it looks bigger than it is. But this is really, the computer graphics are spectacular.
Well, I mean, the history is just, there's a British historian who does loads of books. She's called Mary Bird, and her books are so thick. But if you get them on audio, which I have in the car, because Rome is the beginning of society, the Romans, they invented marriage and divorce and education. And I know the Greeks did a lot, but really Rome, the way we live today is all through the Romans. And she explains stuff in such a magical way. And so does Stephen Fry. He's really good at that. Stephen,
very good at that.
He's amazing at that. But I love those kind of books in the car because, it doesn't matter if you miss a bit and whatever. But there are so many things in there. Like, for instance, the Colosseum. If you just go shopping in Rome, you have to go around the Colosseum,
Oh, yes.
You're on the bus.
It's unavoidable.
Yeah, and there's the Colosseum.
In a good way.
And I think everybody in their lifetime should go because, the Colosseum was the entertainment for everybody.
Yeah, after the Circus Maximus, it started with the Circus Maximus and then the Colosseum was built and it changed the game.
It changed the game. But it also is very similar to today where you give people an inch and then they take a yard because you become desensitized. So first it would start with two gladiators, bang, 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 having a little punch up. Well, that wasn't enough after a while. So we'll add in some lions. And then that didn't, ripping these to pieces wasn't enough. So let's add some hippos and let's add, more and more violence. And then people got fat because they would give free food. So people would eat and they were keeping everybody happy. And that's how Hannibal the Barbarian surprised the Romans, and eventually it was the fall of the Roman Empire. This is my history. But because they'd lost their fitness, they became lethargic and lazy. And of course, that's kind of what's happening today. But also in the Colosseum, what I loved is she talks about different words. So at the top, all the way around the top were these little rooms, and they were called the fornae.
Yes.
That's where the ladies of the night were. And that is
That's
where we
right.
get the word fornication from.
I knew that,
You
actually.
did.
And I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of these thick volumes, has there been, before we part ways today, I think we should talk about summer reads. Has there been anything you've read this summer that you've really loved?
Oh, the best book ever. Oh my God. And I gave it to Andy, my Dilly, my daughter-in-law, while she was here. You know, it's awful when people feel that you're pushing a book on them. And I'm like, and I'm watching her as she's reading it at the pool. Every time I go past her, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? She's like,
that's so annoying.
Get your mother off me, you know. But she read it in like 3 days, and it's called Strange Sally Diamond.
Strange Sally Diamond.
Unput-a-downable.
I'm going to write this down. I think you just made that word up. Unput-a-downable.
Unput-a-downable. And I'll tell you how it opens up, because I'm not going to ruin it. And it's set in Ireland. And I love books set in Ireland for some reason. And
Me too.
It's this woman.
All the Frank McCourt books were so great.
Yeah, and also Graham Norton's books are all his detective.
Graham Norton's books, yeah, amazing. Yeah.
I think he's got a fourth one coming out any day now. But they're always like mysteries, and they're always in Ireland. But so this book begins with this woman who she's from her voice, and she's a little bit. She sounds like she's on the spectrum a bit. You know, she says exactly what she thinks. So she lives, her stepmother's died, and her stepfather is old and not very well. And she's talking about, you know, he's in bed and she's taking him soup and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, he dies. And, you know, there's a saying, oh, put me out with the bins. Have you heard that saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It means you don't want an elaborate funeral.
When I die, just put me out with the bins. So he used to say that to her. So she's very literal. And so he dies of old age. And so she puts him out with the bins. But they live outside this village.
That's amazing.
It gets worse. They incinerate their garbage. So she puts him in the bin and she incinerates him. So then she goes down to the post office, little Irish post office. She says, the woman in there says, oh, where's your father? I've got some mail for him. And she says, oh, I incinerated him. She said, I'm sorry, love. She said, yeah. She said, I put him in the bin. He said, put me out with the bins. And then I incinerated him. And she said, he's dead? She said, yes. Oh, yeah. She said, yeah.
Right, I know.
And anyway, of course, they call the Garda, which is the police in Ireland. Yeah. And so that's the opening page, you know, and
that's
I love
amazing.
Opening pages because
that'll really hook you. That's amazing.
They grab you, and then you find out.
Well, don't spoil it for our listeners.
Yeah, and what happens at the end? No, then you find out why she's like she is, and this story unravels that leaves you like it's one of those books you have to keep turning it over, going, bloody hell. You know, it's fantastic.
I really am going right out to get it. For my birthday this year, my mother gave me a gift certificate to a bookstore. And I've just finished my summer read that I really enjoyed. So I'm ready for my next one. It's only the beginning of August.
And what did you read?
I read this really wonderful memoir by Griffin Dunne, who's a film producer and actor from Hollywood, whose father was Dominic Dunne. Dominic Dunne was famous for writing
Vanity Fair, right?
He wrote for Vanity Fair, was a columnist there for many, many years under Tina Brown, brought on by Tina Brown, and then continuing with Graydon Carter. He also wrote The Two Mrs. Grenvilles, which was a massive bestseller. And he himself was a film producer for many, many years before that. So it's about Griffin's life growing up in this family. His sister was also quite famously murdered by an ex-boyfriend and was the catalyst for many of the stalking laws in America.
Wow.
And was a big crusade for his family. And of course, his aunt and uncle were John Gregory Dunne and Joan Didion.
No.
So yes, he really grew up around some extraordinary people. His very best friend was Carrie Fisher, also an incredibly accomplished writer and actress and interesting character and humorist. So it's a really funny and poignant and tragic and triumphant, beautiful memoir from start to finish with beautiful writing. I mean, he comes from a family of writers, and so you kind of expect a lot going into it, but does he ever deliver on his style of prose? Like, he's just a beautiful writer.
What's the name of it?
It's called The Friday Afternoon Club by Griffin Dunne. And I absolutely loved it. It's a little bit gossipy in that wonderful way where you kind of like are learning little things, little tidbits that you didn't know about luminous figures in, America, but also it's just a poignant story of a family that endures tragedy and ups and downs financially and all kinds of different things that just make them real as characters. So I loved it. It was, what did you say? Unput-it-downable? It was Unput-it-downable.
Yeah.
It was absolutely Unput-it-downable.
Well, the other one
that's your next podcast title. It's just about books and it's called Unput-it-downable with Debbie Travis.
So another one that I read a few months ago, which they're now turning into a movie or a television show, is because it reminded me of that, is the Thursday Night Murder Club.
Yes.
And it's written by...
I've heard of this.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but he's an actor and broadcaster and everything in the UK. And it's a wonderful story because it's a generational thing, and it's about like an old people's home, but a really lovely one. And they've got everything there, and it's somewhere in rural England, and they've converted a stately home. And there's a woman there who's ex-MI5. And there are all these different people who are guests, their final years there, but there's a murder and the police botch. They're just no good at finding. So this group of old people in their kind of 80s.
What a great premise.
It is so good. International bestseller. And now he's done about 3 of them. And it's this group of old people who become detectives, and
that's
they're completely
amazing.
The police. They drive the police insane, but they've got all the quirks of 80-year-olds, and
well, you forget the name of it, but we should tell our listeners that we'll put it in the notes with the podcast because we'll find out.
Thursday Night Murder Club. Again, Unput-it-downable. But on that note, I think our next podcast or next Q&A...
I think we should tease our next podcast.
We should.
The fabulous tease.
Yes, we are going to be talking to Frances Mays because she's on a book tour at the moment across America with her new book called The Great Marriage. And it's getting rave reviews already. So we've both been given upfront copies.
Before the physical book is published, as you know, because you've written so many books. But I'm very excited about reading it from, in its entirety, of course, as soon as I can get my hands on a physical copy. I'm going to order it actually today. Very available on pre-order right now. And I'm sure that some bookstores probably have a few advance copies if you look around.
And did you know this is her first book that is not set at any point in Italy? So all her books, I think she's done about 40 books, have all been some kind of...
Because it started with Under the Tuscan Sun.
Exactly.
And then snowballed from there, of course. So now she's gone to a different locale. And I think that's very exciting. We'll talk about it on the podcast, of course.
We will. Anyway, on that happy note, go back to your wonderful summer.
Enjoy the rest of your summer, everyone.
Yeah.
Before we all have to go back to school and back to work and back to the grind. But until then, I know you join me, Debbie, in wishing everybody who's listening a very, very happy summer. We hope you get to a beach. And if you don't, just enjoy it in the backyard or on your balcony or wherever you can get it in the local parks. It's a beautiful thing to be able to enjoy. Yeah.
See you soon.
Ta-ra.
If you're enjoying this podcast, please rate us, send in a review, and make sure you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This podcast is distributed by the Women in Media Podcast Network. Find out more at womeninmedia.network.